The last method we're going to use is solving by completing the square. And so here's our quadratic we're going to solve with completing the square. This is the only one that we don't want our quadratic in standard form. We actually want to make sure that we move the constant to the other side of the equation. So step 1, make sure it looks like ax squared plus bx equals negative c. So you're going to make sure that it doesn't look like it's in standard form. So for me, I'm going to add 35 to both sides of this equation so that it's not in standard form. Then I have x squared minus 2x equals 35. Next, I'm going to draw a box. I'm doing it for this side of the equation. And so on this side of the equation I have x squared, and the negative 2x has to be evenly distributed between these two boxes, so they have to add up to be negative 2x, but they have to both have the same number in them because we want this to be a perfect square. So in order to make that true, this would have to be a negative 1x, and so would this. Okay. Now we're going to figure out what goes on the outside of the box. So in order for this to be x squared, we would have to have x and x. In order for this to be negative 1x, this would have to be a negative 1, and so would this. Which means our missing number, the number that we don't have, would be negative 1 times negative 1, which is 1. Okay? So we're going to use the box to find the missing number, the number that we need to complete the square. It will be the number that has to go here. That's where our missing number will go. Okay? Now we're going to make sure we add to both sides. We are allowed to add 1 to this side of the equation, but only if we add 1 to the other side of the equation as well. So our equation is x squared minus 2x equals 35. I'm going to add 1 to both sides of that equation, which keeps it balanced, and which turns this side into x squared minus 2x plus 1, and the other side into 36. Okay. Now we're going to write our quadratic in factored form. Because this is a perfect square, both of our factors are the same thing. They're both x minus 1s. I'm just going to write it as x minus 1 squared is equal to 36. Then we're going to take the square root of both sides, making sure that we have a plus or minus on the left side when we do that. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides of this equation, and I get x minus 1 over there. The square root gets rid of the squared, and on the other side I have plus or minus 36. Very last step, we're going to solve for x. There are really two different equations here. One of them is x minus 1 equals 36, and one of them is x minus 1, no, not 36, 6. I forgot to take the square root. So the other one is x minus 1 equals negative 6. Now we add 1, so we get x equals 7. I'm out of space, but I'm going to write it here. And we add 1 here, and we get x equals negative 5. And those are the same answers we got when we solved this using the quadratic formula, when we solved using factoring, and when we solved on our calculator and we found the intercepts on our calculator. So I hope this helped. This is a quick summary of how to use completing the square to solve a quadratic equation.